Читання.
У меня уже есть Питер здесь. Я, наверное, его впущу. Хотя он там висит. Ирочка, привет. Получается 10 человек сейчас. Так, я сейчас буду всех мьютить. Вы не обижайтесь. Вот.
Всем привет.
Всем привет.
Это Таня.
Привет, Тань. Смотрите, я сейчас запущу Питера. Он говорит на английском, ну, как бы, понятное дело, он из Лондона. У него очень приятный английский язык. Он говорит медленно, он вообще академик и сам преподает. Поэтому я думаю, что у вас не будет никаких проблем с его пониманием. Если вы вдруг чувствуете, что вы не понимаете, поднимайте, пожалуйста, руку. Есть тут всякие иконочки, я буду переводить, но я буду видеть, смотреть, если он говорит что-то сложное, я буду стараться его останавливать и переводить. Вот. Собирайте ваши вопросы прямо в комментариях в чатах. Можете сразу, когда появляется какой-то вопрос, писать вопрос, не ждать. Вот, я тогда после его выступления просто буду их задавать. Либо вы можете приберечь и задать самостоятельно, но лучше пишите сразу, как только у вас приходят в голову какие-то вопросы. Я буду его впускать сейчас. Он вообще офигенный чувак. Я думаю, что нам крупно повезло. В нормальное время без войны нам бы пришлось либо иметь хорошие связи с ним поговорить, либо много денег. Вот. И нам повезло, что просто у нас хорошая знакомая, и он сам предложил помощь, говорит, как я могу вообще помочь. Я его быстро словила.
Молодец. Молодец.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you really well. How are you?
Super, thank you, super.
We have here 13 people. I know that a lot of people in a difficult situation moving from border to different sites. So not all of the people, quite a majority, couldn't join us today, but I'm recording this call. So, and we'll be sharing this call with more people. And we are welcoming you here and very appreciate that you are here with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I wish it was under better circumstances. Obviously, it's not. And I hope perhaps, Valerie, we can maybe do this again in the future, you know, when maybe there is a, you know, a wider audience, more accessibility to the internet, and people are not moving around so much. Valerie may have told you a little bit about me, and in 30 minutes today, what I want to cover is self-confidence in an international interview or job-seeking situation that you may find yourself in the near future. There's nothing earth-shatteringly brilliant about doing an international interview. It's about preparation. And the preparation is absolutely critical to how you perform in the interview or even prior to or after, because it communicates to the people that you're meeting what you can bring to that business, what you can bring to that company. So let's have a chat today. I'll be happy to answer any questions either during or after the call. And if there are no questions, then you can always ping them through Valerie or to me directly afterwards, and I'll be happy to answer them as best I can for you. And if you don't understand anything, then let me know. I'm sure, Valerie, you'll help with that, won't you, dear? So that's good. So let's start. I can understand when you're interviewing in a second language, it really casts a lot of anxiety and extra issues around the interviewing process that you may not be familiar with or used to. So what I want to do firstly is to put you in a position where we start to build your confidence from before you get to the interview. There are skills that all of us possess. They're hard skills, they're soft skills, and there are transferable skills. I don't know if you've met that term before, transferable skills, but those transferable skills are really important. Hard skills, they are things like your degree from university, if you're an accountant, your accountancy qualifications, the fact that you can speak English, maybe you can speak German or another language, Ukrainian or another language, that's a hard skill. Then there are soft skills. Soft skills are personality traits, really. They are kind of unique to you as a person. These soft skills, they're not really as measurable as hard skills, but they're very important. And certainly in the West, in the UK, they're valued quite highly if you can show them. These are things like empathy, teamwork, building relationships, adaptability. I stress that word because it's really important, and confidence. And then there are transferable skills now, and these are critically important again. They apply to a variety of jobs, and all of you listening to this call have transferable skills that you can bring to an employer from where you are now. These skills are, because they're more interchangeable, they're flexible, and you can demonstrate in different roles that you have these transferable skills. And so you can bring them to a whole sphere of different job opportunities. These are things like transferable skills, negotiation skills, general numeracy skills, problem solving skills, listening skills, leadership skills, resilience. I think you are all showing like great, resilience at the moment. And why are these transferable skills important? Let's just discuss that briefly, because they strengthen working relationships with people. They help you promote professional relationships, which can lead to career development opportunities for you, and it can lead to greater progression within the company that you may be joining. And when you have transferable skills, you have a more rounded, you have a more complete skill set. So you've got the hard skills, you've got the soft skills, and then you've got these transferable skills. Let's just go through them again because they're important, and they're important because I want you to include them on your CV. So they are where they apply to you. Yeah, dependability, leadership and team management, problem solving, data analysis, communication, time management, empathy, I've made a list of them here. Adaptability, technical knowledge, organizational ability. All those are transferable to from where you are. You may not have them all. You may only have some of them. But even if you've only got one or two, an employer will value them because they can take them and you can immediately add value to that business with those skills. So when you, even before you go into an interview, you can have confidence that you're bringing something to that interview that's of value to the employer. So it will build your confidence in that interview situation. Now, let's think about how you can then take those skills and how you can highlight them on your CV. We said, Valerie, that I'd try to talk about CV at this point, and then afterwards we'll move on to the type of interview you may encounter. It may be different than you've experienced before. It may be very different than what you've experienced before. And then we'll move on to how to get that through that interview in a successful way as possible. So how to highlight these transferable skills onto your CV. I would start off at the top of your CV with a summary. I wouldn't call it summary. I would call it your profile. And I would say very brief description of who you are, what you have done. But then straight after that profile, I'd go into core skills, or even if you want to call it for clarity, transferable skills. And the two, the professional profile and the core skills or transferable skills, they're connected. So I want you to put one or two transferable skills in your profile at the top because they're eye-catching and people will read the top of the page. They might not read much further, but they'll certainly read the top of the page. So one or two there, and then the other transferable skills in a section straight after your profile. And then that's followed by your professional experience, not work experience, professional experience. And when you choose to, let's say you're applying for a management role, or you're applying for a job that requires some particular skill, leadership, for example, or a customer service thing, try to think about the skills that are required there. So leadership and time management, obviously, we've discussed, is a transferable skill. If you're in a customer service role, which you may find that if you're looking for a position in the West, in Europe, in the UK, there are a lot of these kind of customer service type roles now. Then communication's important, organization's important, time management's important. You should reference those in your CV. And then in addition to the CV, there is a cover letter that you should put with your CV. And that cover letter, again, it's good to include one or two transferable skills. Something maybe that you've learned in the past, something that maybe you've demonstrated those skills in a particular job or particular task or something like this. So that brings us on to interviews. We're going fairly quickly because we've got a short time. There's a lot to cover. The interviews I mentioned that you will probably perhaps experience, certainly in the UK, I think certainly in Europe, are going to be quite different. They are probably going to take two forms, although there are many forms they could take. One is what's called behavioral interviewing. It's very common. And I'll give you an example of a question that you might find at a behavioral interview. The interviewer may say to you, give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team. How did you handle that conflict? I'll give you another example so that you start to see the way of thinking of answering a question. We'll come to the way you answer it in a minute. Describe a time when you saw a problem and took the initiative to correct it rather than waiting for someone else to do it. So behavioral interviews, they are asking you to tell the interviewer in detail how you dealt with a particular situation yourself in the role you were in and how you would deal with it in the role you're applying for. Behavioral interviewing, really common actually, in certainly in the UK. And the other type of interview that is really common is what's called a competency-based interview. Competency-based interview, also known as like a structured interview, and they're used more to assess your soft skills and your interpersonal competencies. So things like communication, your decisiveness, your leadership, your teamwork, things that we discussed before, transferable skills. Let me give you an example of a question in a competent, or two examples that I've written down of a competency-based interview question. How do you feel writing a report that is different from preparing an oral presentation? So they're asking you how you feel about it. They want to find how you feel about it. Which change of job, this is another one, did you find the most difficult to make? They're not obvious questions, are they? They're not easy to answer if you're not prepared. And they are designed to test your ability to react. And the interviewer wants to see how prepared you are in that particular context. Now, the interviewer won't tell you the type of interview you're going into. They won't tell you before it. So it's when you get in the interview, you'll realize it's a behavioral interview or it's a competency-based interview. There are other types of interviews. I'm reluctant to mention them because there are many, but I think one of them you may encounter also may be a video or remote interview. That requires a particular skill set, obviously, like today with Valerie, where we're sitting on a video call, you know, so here, if you're doing a video interview, again, it may be a behavioral one. Again, it may be a competency-based interview, but obviously technical things that we've encountered today are important. You know, your webcam's working, the microphone's clear, the link is working, you know, the background behind you is clear, not cluttered. There are nothing behind you that gives away what you may not want to say to the interviewer, like some books on the shelf, for example, that the interviewer can see and go, oh, she likes X, or he likes detective novels, or she likes reading historical fiction, or something like that. And the interviewer can see behind and makes assumptions about you that you might not want to communicate at that point. So be aware, like I have here, a blank wall or something at the back that is neutral, ideally. And be presentable, which I know from my past in Ukraine, everybody's highly presentable. So that's not an issue, I think, in the majority of cases. And the other one may be a phone interview. Again, a phone interview, maybe with video, potentially without video. Better to take that in a very quiet place, speak very clearly, and try to listen. Now, let's come on to any questions at this point. Shall we ask, Valeria? Are we okay at the moment? Yeah, with everything.
Of course, I don't see any questions in the chat. Let me know, guys, if you have anything you would like to know and maybe to describe a bit better if you didn't understand something, for example.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Everything's pretty clear for me, thanks.
Okay, good, good. So let's think about, thank you, that's great. Now, I think we're about halfway in, maybe just over. Yeah, if we don't get to the end of this, we can perhaps do another session, and afterwards I'm going to send some notes to Valerie about with some useful expressions for you in job interviews that you might find very useful. And Valerie, I'll send them to you so you can circulate them if you want.
I have one question. Should I answer it at the end or now?
Yeah, sure. Now, you wish.
So we all Ukrainians like locked in our bubble, in our local circle. We get used to do things and talk and negotiate and behave as it common in Ukraine. And when we go to international market, we don't really understand how other markets and foreigners see us. So we start feeling uncomfortable because from things that we used to do, we are not sure how person we are talking with will react. So we don't know what reaction gonna be. And from this, we have a little bit uncomfortable feeling if we are doing right, if we are saying something right or not.
Sure.
Do you have any, maybe you can share how, as a person who's been living in Ukraine for a long time and talking to Ukrainians a long time, you can see this, can you describe how you see Ukrainians, their maybe quality, level, behavior, how you see us, and maybe some recommendations what we should improve and start first as a priority?
Sure. I think the first thing to say is if you're going into an interview, the person interviewing you in Europe or US or the UK probably doesn't know or probably knows very little about Ukraine and Ukrainians until now, when Ukraine is all over the news. Most people really wouldn't be able to say what a Ukrainian person is in terms of culture, in terms of abilities, in terms of education, in terms of career experience, and as a person, what you're like. So I think it's an opportunity, actually. It's an opportunity for you to communicate what Ukrainians are like, but also what you can bring, and that's the important thing, because at the moment, I think you'll find a slightly different attitude amongst people. I think you'll find an attitude of wanting to help. I think you'll find an attitude of sympathy. I think you'll find an attitude of being in the same mindset of wanting, this situation to end, we're all in now, that you're in now. So that gives you actually a little bit of confidence, I think, because you can sit there and you can say, you can even ask the question of the interviewer, what do you know about Ukraine? What do you know about Ukrainians? And you can engage in dialogue with that person and even educate that person as to what a Ukrainian actually is like. Having lived in Ukraine for 14 years, I know what Ukrainians are like. I know you're highly educated. By the way, most English people don't speak any languages at all. Most Ukrainians will speak 2, 3, 4. So that's a fantastic skill to have. And you have, you know, these talents and abilities that people that are maybe not immediately recognizable to an interviewer that has no knowledge of Ukraine. So I would be, it's natural for Ukrainians to be, what's the word? To hold, not to show their, not to be outgoing, I think. Yeah, it's most Ukrainians are very calm, quiet,
Quite introverted, shy.
respectful people, respect to the people, have good manners, have, you know, cultured behavior. And that is something, again, that you can communicate. The only thing I would say to people is try to, when you're going into an interview, try to come at it from the point of view you have a lot to give. You have a lot of added value to give. Languages, highly educated, which is another thing, by the way. Many people in the UK have never been to university. I don't know if you know that, but it's true. Many people in Europe, the same, and many Ukrainians are highly educated in many different ways. So you have a lot to give. And I think another important thing is that certainly, I don't know from when particularly, but when I moved to Ukraine in 2003, and when I left Ukraine, and I was in London and different places in between in 2019, there was a massive difference between what the Ukraine I arrived at in 2003 and the Ukraine I left in 2019. You know, much more international, much more cosmopolitan, much more awareness and empathy of the world, of what Ukrainians are and your national identity and culture. And this is really, you know, for me, something that you can bring to another company. So does that, I hope that answers it in part, at least. Think about going to this interview. What I would say to you is this: you're going to an interview, phone, video, in person, maybe, however it might be, but the interviewer is in another country, probably. I would strongly suggest you do every bit of research you can about the way they interview people in that country. Because in the UK, people would interview typically behaviorally or competency based. It's difficult to say which one they would use. But if you went, for example, for a job with the company I used to work for, KPMG, well, then you could face interviews like stress interview, where the interviewer puts you under severe stress to ask a question because they want to see how you react to stress. They may do panel interviews where you're interviewed by several people on the same call, all asking different questions, all with different roles. Some good guy, some bad guy, and some in-between guy or lady who is, prepared to ask that question. So respond to the interviewer after doing research on the country that you are living in, or seeking a job in, should we say. Politeness is not an issue for Ukrainians. Most Ukrainians are extremely polite, so that's important too. And for example, if you're looking for a job in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or the Middle East in general, politeness there is really important. And that's important to realize too. Research the country, research the company as well. Do every single piece of research on the company you can. There's a website called, and I think it's global website, called Glassdoor. Glassdoor, one word. It is, it's a website that gives you information on what it's like to work for that company from people that have worked there. And it's very, very widely used. And and if you look at it, you'll find a lot of insights into what that company is like, what they look for in a person, and what they are like as an employer as well. So that's just one example. Then we talked about interviewing. Let's think about how long have we got left, Valerie? Time-wise.
We are over time, but I think I can't stop you.
All right, let's just do 5 more minutes, and then I'll share these expressions with you afterwards, which will help you to prepare for your interview. The one thing I wanted to cover today, and it'll only take me 2 or 3 minutes, is how you at the interview can be confident. You've done your preparation, you've done your rehearsal, hopefully with somebody you know who can help you with the interview questions that you might ask. At the interview, you're going to be nervous, especially because it's going to be in a second language. You've never met the person before, highly likely. You don't know how he or she is going to interview you. So you're going to be anxious. And when you're anxious, it's natural to move and touch your face or anything like this. Breathing is really important. Breathing, deep breathing relaxes you before you go into the interview. If you want to move your fingers or you're a bit unsure, don't try. Just a good thing to do is wiggle your toe, like my fingers, but with your toes. Nobody can see that you're wiggling your toes.
That's what I do all the time.
Yeah. Immerse yourself, because the interview probably in English, yeah, I would have thought, in more cases than not. Before you go to the interview, immerse yourself in English. Everything, listening, speaking, reading, writing, everything you can do in English before you go to that interview to try to help you. Get some practice with somebody else that speaks English, your friend, Valerie, whoever it might be, to boost your confidence before you go into that interview, speaking in English. And I've written one sentence down here. And I think it bears repeating it many times to yourself in your head before you go in. And I say this to yourself: I don't have to be fluent to get a job offer in English. But I do have to be confident in my abilities. And confidence comes from preparation. Try to identify some questions the interviewer is going to ask you. I just said I'm going to share with Valerie after what those questions could be. And I've had this said to me by a very, very senior Ukrainian person. If you don't understand something the interviewer says to you, don't worry about saying, I don't understand. Just say to the interviewer politely, I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that? Or could you explain what you mean in a slightly different way? I think the vast majority of people that are interviewing you would have no issues doing that whatsoever. And then be honest and be humble. Ukrainian people are humble people anyway, about your language skills. Don't say you're C2 if you're B2. Be honest and humble about your language. And then that's about it. Or I think there's a lot more we can cover, lots more. But I think I can understand how you feel. I know how anxious you all are, especially now at this time. If you have some questions, I'll be pleased to answer them either through Valerie or in another way, whichever way may seem to be best. And I hope you found the talk useful. We're time limited, and I'm aware of the time, so I'll stop now. But I'd like to thank you all for listening. And
Do you have a minute to answer one more question, the last one?
Of course, yeah.
There is one question that many countries, especially European, tend to protect their job markets from third world countries. How
Yeah.
do you deal with this wall?
Of protection from third world countries. I think actually there is some, well, I'll give you an example. This week in the press in the UK, there are, and I'm not just saying this actually, this is absolutely true. I've seen lists and lists of employers that are willing to give jobs to Ukrainians. I'm just trying to think, Amazon, some really blue chip household names in the UK that I feel are going to prioritize giving jobs to Ukrainians because of the situation, and also because I think people understand that you need help. Now, the thing is that those jobs may not be the type of jobs that you particularly may be looking for. They might be more junior than you're used to in Ukraine. They might be more challenging, potentially, than you're used to in the UK. But in the UK and Europe now, the workforce is very multicultural. It comprises of many, many people. The salaries typically, even at a low level, are probably going to be higher, a lot higher than you're used to in Ukraine, even at a minimum level. But so is the cost of living. Yeah, and that's important to remember too. But the important thing is that I think, money and finances are not going to be critical because there's a lot of government support going to be given to people. And there's a lot of employers that are going to support you in terms of sponsorships and in terms of job opportunities. So it's not just you applying for a job, it's also employers in the UK, and I think also all over Europe, and certainly the US, I would imagine too, that are actually going to look actively at looking to give Ukrainians a job.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I know from my experience that a lot of my friends actually love working with Ukrainians, and they would like to find Ukrainian people to work with because we have a high rated in the international market from what I hear.
Yes.
So we have a very good potential. We have one more question about CV, but we are
Sure.
Can you?
Yes. Yeah. I'm okay. I'm okay till 4:30 UK.
Okay, then we have so there is a question that there's quite common question, by the way, that a lot of people now have to change the course of their life, and most of the time their previous experience in Ukraine are not really suitable for new positions that they are adjusting themselves to for international market. So when they are starting to search in international market, they try to gain new skills and applying to something a little bit new than was before.
Yeah.
And their previous experience way different, like English teacher, sales manager, junior social media management, which are completely different things. So there is
Yes.
no one clear line. How would you recommend to do in this stage, and should they create like separate CV for each of the role that they're applying for?
Yes and no, and it's a good question actually. I would have one master CV that has the profile, the transferable skills, and the professional experience, followed by your education. That CV should be ideally no more than 1.5 pages of A4 long, and certainly no more than 2 pages long. Absolutely not. The CV itself, when we get to your professional experience, should not be limited to your responsibilities. It should include your achievements. So an employer's looking not so much what you did, more what you achieved in that position. So don't say I was responsible for data analysis. Say I was responsible for data analysis, and because of this, I contributed to the successful early completion of the project, or something like this. So achievements linked to responsibilities, really critical. Think about the role you're applying for. Think about the skill set that you needed for that role. A customer service skill set, a sales skill set is completely different potentially than an accountancy skill set or a data analytical skill set or an IT skill set. So have one master CV that has that is basically you, so that CV is you. It's your profile, it's your skills, it's your professional experience. And then don't completely rewrite the CV for each job application. If you did that, it would take forever, applying for different jobs every day. But tweak it, fine tune it a little bit, so that when you read a job advertisement, read it carefully, read it several times. The employer will give you what they're looking for in terms of skills. There will be some key words in that job advertisement or posting on some job board. Read through, try to pick out the key words. These are things like experience, dependability. I'm trying to look at the one that I just actually wrote for a business that I applied for. with Greater Manchester the other day, but it was something like international experience, good relationship builder, basically, a person that can communicate, a person that has data analytical skills, maybe some CRM skills, things like this that may be required, may not be required, but you'll pick it out from the job advertisement itself. And then tweak your CV with your experience where you can match it to the advertisement, but don't exaggerate your ability. Just match it to the requirements of the job where you see that match of it together. And I think that's the best way to do it. And the other way to do it is to use your standard CV, and in your cover letter is to show how you fit the job in your cover letter from this, and leave the CV the same. So the CV the same, cover letter different for each particular job. And that's probably all I can say there. Yeah. So hope that's go on there. Sorry, yeah, go on.
I think that's time for me to let you go. And we covered a lot. I know that the topic is huge and we can go forever with this topic.
Yeah.
I hope that all people that here right now have a little bit of inspiration and increase their self-confidence, at least the understanding how to do that, so they can do next steps.
Yeah.
And really appreciate for your time, for being with us, for supporting.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's just end, if I may, just by giving you like just some brief headlines that I think will be really important. It'll take 2 minutes, Valerie. Yeah.
Of course.
So these are the headlines that I want you to concentrate on when you're going for your interview. Yeah. So and thinking about Ukrainians here too. So bring the attention of the person to your education and qualifications. You're highly educated and you've got that to communicate. So bring the attention, get the attention by mentioning your education and qualifications. They're really relevant. Your work experience is really relevant in your career so far. The fact that it's all Ukraine-based potentially doesn't matter. It's work experience, and some of you may have already worked with international companies, some with Ukrainian companies, but it doesn't matter. It's your work experience that matters, the skills you've got, hard skills, soft skills, transferable skills. Describe your best features and what motivates you. That's all. Like, you're hardworking, you're organized, you're decisive, you're patient, easygoing, team player, committed, focused, those kind of words like this. Use intensifiers, grammar now, English grammar, to make stronger statements in your CV. I am very organized. I am really good at showing initiative. I have very good people skills. Things like this, yeah. Again, really important for Ukrainians. Make sure you highlight your language skills, because language skills are in demand in the UK, in Europe. The ability to speak different languages, Ukrainian, German, whatever it might, English, whatever it might be, really are in demand and in short supply. Include any technical experience you've got, or projects that might be relevant to you. So that's important. Technical skills are job specific, but they're important to highlight if you've got them. Don't forget them, yeah. Talk about, I think people will be interested in at the moment about your background, about where you're from, about, maybe where you grew up, about Kiev, about Ukraine. They'll be interested because it's in the news, not for good reasons, I know, but it's in the news. So they'll be interested, to hear from you about that. And there's one approach I want, and I'll share it with you afterwards, Valerie, that I want you to look at. It's called STAR. And if you can keep this in your mind, STAR, and get your thinking around this approach, it will focus your CV writing, it'll focus your interview question answering. STAR: situation, task, action, result. Situation, task, action, result. It's when I worked for this company, I set up, I created, I managed, I designed. Situation. Task: as part of my role, I was asked to. Action: I created, I designed, I had a meeting with. Result: I successfully managed, I successfully created, I was able to resolve this situation. We won a new contract. That's the essence of STAR. I'll share some more details on that. And finally, demonstrate that you can solve that employer's problems. And that comes from matching your abilities to their needs. And there we go. So thank you very much. Slava Ukraini. And thank you very much, dear. And I will put this document together for you, Valerie, and for everyone. Probably circulate it tomorrow because I'm going to go to the gym in a few minutes. And I hope you've all found everything interesting and useful. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.